Hey everyone, welcome back to DevCraft Projects. Today we're going to build a beautiful digital clock from scratch, using only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This tutorial is perfect for beginners. Even if you've never written a line of code before, I'll explain every step so you can follow along and build this project with me. Here's what we'll be creating. A clean and modern clock that shows the current time, day, date, and month. We'll also add a feature to switch between 12-hour and 24-hour time formats with just one click. Everything updates automatically in real time, so once it's running, you don't have to refresh anything. It just works. Alright, let's get started. First, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'll name it Digital Clock. Now I'll open this folder in Visual Studio Code. Inside this folder, we'll create 3 files. Index.html. This will hold the structure of our clock. Style.css, this is where we'll design and style it. Script.js, and finally, this file will contain all the JavaScript to make our clock run. Now, inside our index.html file, we need to set up the basic HTML structure. The quickest way to do this in VS Code is by typing an exclamation mark and then pressing the tab key. This gives us the full HTML boilerplate instantly, so we don't have to type it all manually. Here, we set the title of our web page. This text will appear in the Browser tab, so visitors know what the page is about. Right now, I'm calling it Digital Clock, but you can name it anything you like. Now we add the CSS file link to connect our CSS file. This way, all the styles we write in style.css will be applied to our HTML page. Now let's add the structure for our digital clock. First, I'm creating a diff with the class container. This will hold everything inside our clock project. Inside it, I've added an H1 with the class title that says Digital Clock. This is just the main heading so users instantly know what this page is about. Next, I'm creating another diff with the class format box. Inside this, there's an H2 that says Select Time Format and a select dropdown with 2 option elements. The first option has a value of 12 for 12-hour format, and the second has a value of 24 for 24-hour format. This will let the user choose how they want to see the time. After that, we have a diff with the class clock. Inside it, the first section is a diff with the class date panel. Here, I've used 3 p tags. One with the ID date numeric to display the date in numbers, like that. One with the ID date day to display the day name, like Sunday. And one with the ID date month to display the month name, like September. Below that, we have another diff with the class time display. Inside, I've added an H3 with the ID time. This will display the live digital time that updates every second. Finally, at the very bottom, I've added a script tag with script.js. This links our JavaScript file so we can make the clock actually work. Alright, our HTML structure is ready. Now let's open this in the browser so we can see how it looks. You can see our title, the time format dropdown, and the placeholders for the date and time. Right now, it doesn't look very pretty, and of course, it's not showing the real time yet. But don't worry, we'll fix that with CSS for styling and JavaScript for functionality. Let's move on to styling our digital clock. I'll open the style.css file and start with a universal selector. Here, I'm setting margin 0 and padding 0 to remove any default spacing the browser adds. Then I'm using border box. Next, I'm styling the body tag. I'm using display flex, along with justify content center and align items center, to perfectly center our clock in the middle of the screen both vertically and horizontally. I've set the height to 100 VH, which means 100% of the viewport height, so our layout fills the whole screen. For the background, I'm using a linear gradient that goes from a light blue to a deep blue from left to right. This gives our project a clean, modern look. Finally, I'm styling the container class, which wraps all of our content. I'm giving it a height of 60 VH and a width of 40% so it sits nicely in the center without taking up the entire screen. Now let's style the heading and the format selection area. First, for the title class, I'm setting the text color to a light gray so it stands out against the blue background. I'm adding a text shadow. This creates a soft shadow behind the text, giving it a slightly 3D effect. The font size is set to 3 rem so the title is big and eye-catching. And I'm using font weight 800 to make it bold. Text align center centers the title horizontally, and the font family is set to Arial for a clean, modern look. Next, we style the format box, which contains the select time format, text, and the drop-down menu. I'm using Display Flex along with Justify Content Center and Align Item Center to center everything nicely. The gap 1 rem adds space between the text and the drop-down. Finally, I'm adding margin to push it down from the title and give it some breathing space. Lastly, for format box heading, I'm giving it the same light color, setting the font size to 1.2 rem, and keeping the same clean font family so it matches the title. Now let's style the drop-down menu where the user can choose between 12-hour and 24-hour formats. First, I'm setting its width to 100 px and adding padding 0.5 rem so the text inside has some space around it. The background color is a semi-transparent dark shade, which blends nicely with our overall theme. I'm setting the text color to white so it's easy to read. For the border, I'm using 2px solid to make it stand out, and Outline None removes the default focus outline when we click it. The corners are rounded using border radius 1 rem, giving it a softer look. The font size is 16px, and I've added a smooth animation with transition 0.5s all ease. Finally, cursor pointer changes the cursor when hovering, letting users know it's clickable. For the hover effect, I'm using scale 1.1 to slightly enlarge the dropdown when we move the mouse over it. This makes it feel more interactive and modern. Now let's style the main clock area. For the clock class, I'm setting a semi-transparent black background, so the content inside is easier to read against the blue gradient. I'm adding padding 2 rem to give space inside the box, and border radius 2 rem to make the corners nicely rounded. Then, I'm using an inset box shadow, which gives a glowing effect inside the clock area, making it look more stylish and modern. Next, for the date panel class, I'm using Display Flex along with Justify Content Space Around so each date element, the numeric date, the day, and the month are spaced evenly. Align Item Center keeps them aligned vertically. The font size is set to 1 rem, with font weight 600 to make the text slightly bold. The text color is a light gray, and the font family is Sego UI for a clean and professional look. Finally, for the ID time element, which shows our live clock, I'm making it big and clear with font size 3 rem. Text Align Center keeps it perfectly centered. Margin top 1 rem gives it space from the date above, and the color keeps it readable against the dark background. Time to make our page interactive. At the top of script.js, we'll grab the HTML elements we want to update. Const creates a constant reference. We use it because this reference should never point to a different element. Document.querySelector looks inside our page and finds the first element that matches a CSS selector. #time means select the element with ID equals time. We'll update this element's text every second to show the live clock. This grabs the select dropdown with ID equals format. We'll read format.value to know whether the user wants 12-hour or 24-hour time, and we'll listen for changes when they switch it. This gets the paragraph that shows the numeric date. We'll set its text content to the current date, so it always stays correct. This selects the spot where we'll display the day name, like Sunday or Monday. And this one targets the month name, like September or October. Great! Now we've connected JavaScript to the exact places in HTML that we want to change. Next, we'll generate the real date and time and start updating these elements. First, I'm creating 2 arrays lists of text. Weekdays holds all the day names, from Sunday to Saturday. Months holds all the month names, from January to December. We'll use these lists to convert the numbers we get from JavaScript's date object into human-readable names. For example, instead of showing 9, we'll show September. I'm creating a function called updateDate. I'm using the arrow function, which is a modern, clean way to write functions in JavaScript. This line makes a new date object called date. It captures right now from your computer's clock, year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, everything. Now I'm pulling out the exact pieces we need. GetMonth gives the month index from 0 to 11. January is 0, February is 1, December is 11. So we'll adjust this later. GetDate gives the day of the month from 1 to 31. GetFullYear gives the 4-digit year, like 2025. GetDay gives the weekday index from 0 to 6, where Sunday is 0 and Saturday is 6. I'm storing them in let variables because I'll transform them shortly. Make day and month 2 digits. Dates look cleaner when single digits have a leading 0, like 03 instead of 3. To do that, I first convert the number to a string using string. Then I use .padstart to make sure it's at least 2 characters long, filling with a 0 on the left if needed. Notice for the month I wrote +1. Remember, getMonth is 0-based, so January is 0, and we add 1 to display it as 1 to 12 for humans. Now we push our formatted data into the HTML. CurrentDate.text content becomes a template string, day/month/year. I'm using day first format here. If you prefer month first, just swap the order. CurrentDay.text content equals weekdays. Day is a number 0 to 6, so we use it as an index to pick the correct name from our weekdays array. If day is 0, we show Sunday. CurrentMonth.text content equals months. Here we use the raw month index, 0 to 11, to look up the name in the months array. If is 8, we show September. We're creating a function called midnight update. Its job is simple. Figure out how long until the next midnight, wait that amount of time, update the date right at midnight, and then keep doing that every day. First, we grab the current time and store it in a variable called now. This now object holds everything: the year, the month, the day, the hours, minutes, and even the seconds. Next, we create another date, which I'm calling next. This one represents tomorrow at exactly midnight. Here's how. We take the current year with getFullYear. We take the current month with getMonth. For the day, we use getDate +1, so that's tomorrow's day. Then we set the hours, minutes, and seconds all to 0. The cool part? JavaScript automatically handles tricky rollovers for us. If today is the last day of the month, or even December 31st, adding 1 still gives us the correct next date. Now we figure out the time gap. When you subtract 2 date objects, JavaScript gives you the difference in milliseconds. So ms is literally how many milliseconds from right now until midnight. With that number, we set a timeout. This tells JavaScript, wait exactly this long, and then run my code. At midnight, 2 things happen. First, we call updateDate, so the display instantly flips to the new day. Second, we start a 24-hour interval that calls updateDate once every day. Why don't we just use setInterval from the start? Because if you open the page at, say, 3:15 in the afternoon, your updates would always happen at that time, not at midnight. By using a timeout first, we line things up perfectly. Finally, when the page loads, we call updateDate once so the date is correct right away. And then we call midnight update to handle all the future updates automatically. Now we'll write the function that updates the time on screen every second. We're creating a function called updateClock. Every time this runs, it will refresh the time display. Now grab the current time. This creates a date object representing right now, today's date and the current hours, minutes, and seconds. For extract hours, getHours gives us the hour in 24-hour form, 0 to 23. GetMinutes and getSeconds return numbers from 0 to 59. I'm also setting up a variable called AMPM. We'll use it only if the viewer chooses 12-hour format. Handle 12-hour logic plus AM and PM. This if checks the dropdown. Format.value is a string, either 12 or 24. If it's 12, we decide whether it's AM or PM. If the 24-hour hours is 12 or more, it's PM, otherwise AM. Then we convert the 24-hour number into 12-hour form using hours modulus 12. This turns 13 into 1, 14 into 2, and so on. There's one special case, midnight and noon. 12 modulus 12 becomes 0, but on a digital clock we don't want to show 0. The double bar 12 part fixes that. If the result is 0, we use 12 instead. So 0, 0 becomes 12 AM and 12 stays 12 PM. 13 becomes 1 PM, etc. On a digital clock, each number should always take up 2 digits. For example, instead of showing 1-digit time, we want to convert in 2 digits. These 3 lines take care of that. They check. If the number is less than 10, add a 0 in front. Otherwise, leave it as is. That way, every part of the clock stays nice and even. Now build the final time string. Now we create the text we want to show. I'm using a template string, the backtick syntax, so we can easily drop variables inside. If the user picked 12-hour format, we include the AM/PM label at the end. If they picked 24-hour format, we leave AM and PM off. I've also added spaces around the colons to match the design style, but you can remove those spaces if you prefer a tighter look. Finally, we place the string into our H3 with ID time element with inner text that instantly updates what the viewer sees on the page. Alright, now we need the clock to actually update on its own. First, we're saying format.addEventListenerChange, update clock. This line listens for when the user changes the time format from 12-hour to 24-hour, or the other way around. Whenever that happens, we immediately call update clock so the display switches right away. Next, update clock runs once as soon as the page loads. That way, the clock doesn't stay blank for a second. It shows the correct time right from the start. Finally, the most important part, set interval update clock, 1000. This tells JavaScript, run update clock every 1000 milliseconds, or every 1 second. That's how the numbers keep moving like a real clock. Without this, the time would just freeze after the first update. Alright, and that's it. Our project is complete. We've built a fully working digital clock from scratch using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You can see the current day, date, and month updating automatically, and the time ticking every second like a real clock. If I switch the format from 24-hour to 12-hour, it instantly changes and even adds AM/PM. Super smooth. We also made sure the date updates perfectly at midnight, so even if you leave this running all night, tomorrow's date will appear right on time. And thanks to our CSS, the design looks clean, centered, and modern with a nice gradient background and subtle shadows. So that's how you can make a live digital clock web app with just a few lines of code. I hope you enjoyed building this digital clock with me, and more importantly, that you understood the logic behind every step. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss my upcoming projects. Also, let me know in the comments what features you'd like me to add to this clock, or what project you'd like to see next. I love hearing your ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.